Alexandra, big day for you tomorrow. Can you tell us what's going to happen?
Yeah, tomorrow we're in BC Supreme Court asking a judge to look at whether it's legal for the provincial government to be regulating and citing fish farms. 20 years ago in 1988, the federal government gave regulation of fish farms to the province based on the premise that the fish farms had no impact on any federal jurisdiction. Well, the ocean is federal. The seafloor is provincial, and we're going to argue that because the fish farms are hanging in the ocean water and that the things that are inside the pen come out and enter the ocean, that they should be regulated by the federal government. So you might ask, is DFO going to do a better job of regulating these fish farms than the province? Probably not, unless we stay with them on this. But the big advantage will be it's in one house. The other hugely significant thing is the provincial government has no interest or jurisdiction over wild fish. And so when they say fish farms are in full compliance and that, the sea lice are lower in the farm fish, all of that may be true, but they're not looking at what's going on in the ocean. That's beyond their jurisdiction. It's not in their interest. They don't make any money off of it. So the federal government, if they were looking after the fish farms, they would have to be measuring inside and outside, and they would have to be doing a better job than the province.
What are the fish farms doing up in the Broughton Archipelago right now as far as the other mainly carnivores that live on the fish?
Right now the fish farms are all still operating. They're trying to expand even though their leases are now expired, and we're seeing devastating impact. The grizzly bears are trying to fatten up on grass and roots. It's heartbreaking to think of a bear going into the hard months without enough food. Cubs are getting eaten by the large males. Young unborn bears will not be born. They will be reabsorbed by their mother. The mothers aren't going to have enough fat. Fishing for pink salmon around Echo Bay was very, very poor. There was virtually none caught. Eagles didn't get any. My community is dying of this whole situation. They took our school away this year. We're down to one mail day a week. Very, very few people left. The Premier always says how fish farming is good for small coastal communities. Well, you don't get a smaller coastal community than Echo Bay, and fish farmers don't work there. They don't live there. They don't buy gas there. They don't put the kids in the school there. So, we bear the brunt of the industry, but we don't actually get any returns. Now, there's some communities that say they want fish farms, in particular some First Nations communities, and, they should take them. Take the whole thing. Campbell River wants fish farms. Take them within your municipal boundaries. Campbell River and Port McNeill and other towns say they're for fish farms, but they don't actually see one. They get the corporate offices, they get the processing plants, maybe their communities are benefiting. But Sointula, Allure Bay, Echo Bay, the Guayastems Village, these places are not benefiting from the farms. So if communities want them, take them.
What's happening with the whales up there?
The whales are spending, for the last 2 years, much more time traveling. So they'll be out at Pine Island, and they'll sweep all the way down towards Campbell River, and then they're back. They're not forming the big stable groups that just feed and socialize in Johnson Straits. And you might say, okay, so the whales aren't socializing, big deal. Well, it is a big deal because that's when the babies are made. Orca have a culture. They have societies that require the whales to spend time together. And without it, they will unravel. They'll probably relocate. So if we want them as neighbors, we'll have to have salmon for them.
What about the energy they're burning up running around? They themselves have to keep a fat layer up, don't they?
That's right, yeah. So instead of putting on weight, the whales are continuing to expend energy. This whole thing doesn't make sense because wilderness tourism generates $1.4 billion in this province, whereas fish farming is about 500 to 600 million. But they're corporate owned by Norwegians, so the money is spread over I don't know where to shareholders we never see. Whereas the wild salmon benefits so many things. They are the backbone of this coast. They bring energy from the open Pacific. They feed our forests. We need those forests to absorb carbon from the atmosphere. They are a food source. People don't remember that wild salmon are a clean, safe food source. And in a world with corporate food experiments gone bad every month, people dying of it, I don't know why we would reject a fish that comes to our doorstep every single fall and gives us what it has.
Now, in that vein, there's a bigger story on the Fraser River now. Research has shown that the sockeye fry are being taken out up in Campbell River. Can you enlarge on that?
Yes, I've spent the last 5 years doing that with a group of people. Raincoast Conservation is involved as well, and some local fishermen have put in huge hours there. What we're seeing is on the migration route of the Fraser River sockeye, the herring, the pinks, and the chums are heavily infected with sea lice. In fact, this year it was worse there than in the Broughton Archipelago, and the Broughton was still very bad. The thing about sea lice is if the farms are giving the fish lice, there's also the exposure to bacteria and viruses. And there's been enormous viral outbreaks on these farms, very, very lethal viral outbreaks that have spread right from the Campbell River farms through the Johnson Straits farms, the Broughton farms, the Port Hardy farms, and the farms off Bella Bella. So yes, these are natural diseases, but the problem is the farms amplify them to such a huge level that the pathogens come at the fish, and they just can't survive it.
Do you think the Campbell government, actually Gordon and some of his ministers, can be held accountable for this, actually basically taken to court in time?
I think they should be held accountable for it, and I think the Department of Fisheries and Oceans should be held accountable for this. And we have to remember, Fisheries and Oceans Canada wiped out one of the biggest food supplies on this earth, and that was those North Atlantic cod. And the scientists were saying the same thing I'm saying. They're saying that they're disappearing. And they said nope, and when those fish were gone, the Hibernia oil wells went onto the Grand Banks.
That's another question. Do you think this is a lost leader to get at the Run of the River projects? No Fisheries Act?
It might be, and it might be bigger than that. I think wild salmon, they make the politicians bite all the hands that feed them. So, there's so many industries that are impeded by wild salmon. The logging, the mining, the hydro development, the diverting water to the United States. Wild salmon are in the way of all of these things, and it's just a simple fact.
When do you think they'll go extinct if it keeps going the way it is?
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely going extinct. And unless the public stops it right now, myself, I've been doing what I can for 20 years. Let me tell you, I am losing. Those farms are still there. They're still getting bigger. They're still killing the fish. And unless there is a public outcry that makes it a personal crisis for the politicians in office, they are not going to do anything.